Okay, and this is Maria number 2. So, and this Maria, she said she tested as avoidant. You want to start? She tested as avoidant.
Well, we see Saturn showing up in the first house there. So there's a Saturn element to starting new things and her path. And, she's going to be cautious and be careful. And Saturn might have an impact somewhat on her personality, asking her to just be very responsible and even sometimes detached. Saturn has an element that can do that. And, we also see her 7th cusp Lord as Venus there with Ketu. So it's with Jupiter as well, but we've got a Venus-Ketu conjunction. And so when we see Venus and Ketu, that person sometimes doesn't meet the standard that they're looking for. They don't the things don't necessarily live up to what they feel like should be in relationship. It shows they've done relationship a lot in the past, and that K2 aspect is very much about holding up the bar of perfection. The K2 is the elixir of immortality, digesting in the belly of the dragon. And that elixir is the closest thing to spirit and the divine. So that K2 does not want anything less than that. It doesn't have a mouth. It doesn't have eyes. He's not hungry. He's digesting perfection. And so when Venus gets there with K2, it uses that perfection of K2 as a standard for what should be. And so their relationships need to be very, very spiritual, very, on the next level. A more like universal love and learning how to love on the acceptance level. And Jupiter is in such good dignity there. It's really magnifying that.
Wow. Yeah, and then following the opposite, Rahu in the 8th. Well, this is something that can definitely play into an avoidant attachment style.
Sure.
This is really, K2 in the 2nd means that she figured out how to be very self-sufficient in her previous lifetimes. So she came in with a tremendous amount of skill and, how to take care of herself. Now she has to learn to receive and to see her partner's resources, whatever those are, as an extension of her own. But it requires a certain amount of vulnerability to be able to receive that way. And so Rahu is where we're being pulled, right? That's where the soul wants you to go. Yeah. And that's always the hardest thing to do because we have no experience there. Not really. And it's in Gemini, so that's experimentation. A lot of it's experimentation. And so one of the ways to work out of the avoidant style could be to really focus on receiving, not just from people, but from the divine, from nature, from friends. And if you focus on how much you receive, then you can stretch yourself to receive more and to get comfortable with receiving. So you don't feel so frightened that if you allow yourself to depend on somebody, that the rug is going to get ripped out from underneath you. Because she may have actually experienced a lot of that at some point in relationship. And then, of course, there's always the moon, right? We have to look at the moon.
Yeah.
And that's Ratma Karaka. So why don't you start with that? Tell me what you think.
Well, she's got her moon. Let's see, her moon's in a friend's dignity. It's in the 4th house, being aspected by that Mars.
Nice place for it.
Yeah, it's got probably a really strong Shadbala in the 4th house.
That's
and it's in a friend's dignity there. So, there is that Mars pushing the moon, and, the element, moon Mars aspects can be wealth aspects too. They take a little more work, but they do bring some fortune in there, so that's nice. And her moon does show that she has this potential for potential for secure, so I think she maybe had said that she had tested or maybe been an avoidant in the past, but that I don't know if she's feeling secure at this point, but there's a strong potential for that.
Yeah, there is, for sure.
In her chart. Yeah, especially because of where you were pointing out Rahu in the 8th house as well. Rahu starts maturing at about the age of 42. So there is a cap to how long Rahu creates so much chaos in a house. When at the age of 42, it usually starts becoming a little bit clearer on how to work with that. That's the maturation age is important for that. So, and working on, like you said, receiving, but also feeling okay being vulnerable, and and also happiness, feeling her level of happiness grow as she resolves these things and learns how to receive more and learns how to be okay with feeling vulnerable more. I think her happiness would grow. Yeah.
Absolutely, because this is the house of inner happiness. And the moon loves to be in that house. So as you're starting off ahead of the game here. Now, this Mars with the moon, aspecting the moon, on one hand is really helpful for discerning the truth of things, because that's what Mars's job is. But part of the avoidant thing is wanting to avoid conflict, not really understanding how to work through conflict without harming the relationship. And I think that a lot of avoidant people do that because they don't want to harm the relationship. At least that's the initial, desire. Of course, it has the opposite effect, but at first, it seems like the right thing to do. So the great thing about what I really love about this attachment style work, this attachment theory stuff, and just the books that we've already mentioned, they give you so many wonderful tools to deal with conflict. And just the way you think about it in the first place changes in the light of that work. And then Channing mentioned the nonviolent communication, which is another tool that you can learn. This is what I love about that stuff, about astrology and about the attachment style stuff, is everything is learnable. Just because your birth chart may have challenges like this doesn't mean you're stuck with this. This is just the starting spot. It's like the cards that you've been dealt, right? Or the results of karmas from previous lifetimes. But the point of life is to make the unconscious conscious. And so that's what you're doing when you study astrology.
Yeah, and we can see when we look at her Navamsha chart that she does have Rahu in the 7th. So there is an aspect to her development that is, could come in around being more involved in relationship and working on these types of things as Rahu matures more too.
This is another wealth thing. Here we've got Mars, Jupiter opposition, another nice Jupiter. So because her Jupiter is so nice, she does attract good men. Mercury is the Darakaraka. And, so we see Mercury here in Capricorn aspected by Saturn, the Sun in K2. So that just adds more details to the spouse person. And of course, Venus over here ruling the 7th. It's almost always more complicated than just one planet. But generally, this is a nice. So this means happiness in marriage is highly possible. Now this, I want you to say something about this one first.
Well, I mean, the Venus-Mars is making her passionate. She has a lot of passions, and she should be able to explore those. It's with her Atmakaraka. This is making her inspired, passionate about certain things. So I think that's positive if we understand it, if we're not just following it, here and there, and understand that there's a great deal of energy channeling through that's going to be very passionate at times.
You know what I learned from Allison Armstrong? Another fantastic
Oh
relationships
yeah.
resource I want to recommend is that she found through her study of brain research that when a woman shares what she's passionate about with her man, that actually causes positive chemical reactions in his body. He
Mm-hmm.
loves that.
Yeah.
So here, your very passionate nature is something that can really be an asset in your relationship if you understand how to use it that way. So if he asks you how your day is, just jump right in, start telling him what you're passionate about and how you're working towards your passions. What you don't want to do is you don't want to use Mars in an inappropriate way. That's what causes these kinds of problems when you have Venus, Mars together. It's always Mars. It's not Venus, it's Mars.
Right.
You want to use your Mars for work. You want to use your Mars to take care of little kids, disabled people, to take care of your own self. You don't want to use Mars to tell your man how to live, what to think, what to do, to give him advice when he hasn't asked for it, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually, wouldn't you say that that's why Venus and Mars causes frustration in relationships? Because
Yeah.
Mars
Yeah.
has such a strong idea about the way things should be. And so when they're not, he wants to make them like that.
That's part of it there too. Plus the moon, the moon's involved with Venus there too. Kind of adding that element of personal perspectives to the Venus aspect of things, and so this Mars energy with Venus can be used for so many things if you understand it. If you're going to channel it through. But if you get wrapped up in a way that you feel like each passion that comes along is, you have to follow everything, then that can get confusing as well. So, just getting an understanding that that you're going to be a passionate person and to channel that, to use that for creative energy.
That is tough. I have my Mars in Gemini, and oh my God, do I have to channel that? And really, I mean, always lassoing it in, saying, no, don't go off on that tangent. Stay focused. Stay focused. It can be scattered all over the place, and it can cause problems in relationships.
Yeah.
One of the things my husband's always telling me, he's like, okay, so this is your list for the day. Yeah. What is actually realistic? And he's very good at saying, well, maybe you should put this thing, like for later, after you've done this thing. He really helps me. He really does. Because I try to do a million things in one day.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to be too busy for connection.
With that Mercury element, yeah. I mean, I have Mars in Virgo, so I have the other end of Mercury on there, which is
right.
the political and the critical and the digging things up and the wanting to purify, wanting to fix those things. So it's being able to channel my Mars on how to fix the problems that need to get fixed out there, like using astrology, information, not personal,
I imagine you've gone through a whole evolution with that in your relationships too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, because once you really understand how these things are working, and then you see it. Oh, that's how that's presenting itself. I also use the human design.
Oh yeah.
So the human design has, I use all of these wonderful just places of knowledge to kind of apply to, and then things will happen and it'll come up in my mind. Oh, look, there's an opportunity to look at that instead of denying it or feeling sad about it, or it's more of you get to a place of just really curiosity. Okay, great, that really hard thing is coming up again. Great, I have an opportunity now.
Oh, that's a good one. So yeah, Mars and Mercury signs is an abundance of curiosity for sure. That's a great way to use it. Absolutely. Okay, so we are finished with this one. second Maria number 2,